put it that way. And we know that the government of Rwanda is committed. It has just formed the National Council of Science and Technology. And through that particular body, it is going to be more or less the mouthpiece of sourcing for research funds to be able to drive the Rwandan research agenda.
Yeah, I want to add something.
Okay.
If you look at how development has gone worldwide, when we went into the era of the knowledge economy,
yes,
there was realization, whether in Africa or wherever, that for countries to be able to develop, they have to exploit the knowledge.
Yes.
And there is also a push that to be able to exploit that knowledge, you need to emphasize in research, more so in science and technology.
Yeah.
Because science and technology contributes to the transformation of society in terms of the economy and so on. And the reason why the AAU, African countries, met and realized that if they are going to take control, to develop, to make contribution in the knowledge economy of the world, they have to emphasize in research and innovation. And that is why they made all that commitment of 1% of the GDP. All the countries did it. But yeah, you are right, the practice, many countries are trying. Because South Africa, Kenya, Rwanda here, Tunisia, Botswana, many are trying to meet that requirement. But as you said, there are some competing requirements. But for me, the important thing is that there's been an acknowledgement in the government to say that for them to advance, to exploit their resources, they have to invest in research and innovation. And this is, if you look at it, if you look at Rwanda, of course, they made that commitment. But all the other countries, there is that attempt to industrialize. And you can see, as I said, Korea, Israel, these have got very high per capita investment in R&D, and the results are seen. So this is a demonstration that people are accepting that you need to invest in STEM, you need to invest in research and innovation if you are to exploit the knowledge resource of the country.
Okay, so it's really clear that the government of Rwanda is really doing so much work to fund higher education space in Rwanda. But in this case, I understand that it's not enough. So what are some of the alternative funding sources that you find ways to raise?
There are there, of course, the private sector. That's why we emphasize on private partnerships with industry, with the universities. We also have donors. There's a lot of investment that donors make to support, in particular, research in higher education. So it's a partnership which government can't manage alone. And as you mentioned before, in other countries, I think Ghana, where they levy the taxes so that people can contribute to the higher education, because it is expensive in reality, and government can't do it alone. That's why they have to encourage private people, individuals to contribute to higher education.
Okay, so in Ghana we have the Ghana Education Trust Fund, and then in Nigeria we have the TET. What's the case in Rwanda? Have you got any special fund that is really meant for higher education in Rwanda?
Apart from, he mentioned the National Council for Science and Technology, that one has just started a fund to support research. So they'll be putting in money to be able to support projects that are competitive as part of supporting research in the country. It's a start. But in terms of the initiatives I mentioned about Ghana and Nigeria, we are not there yet.
Do you think there's more work to be done because there is some increasing decline of public funding of higher education institutions?
Yeah, there is, because as you say, there's going to be a need. There is a need for to provide more opportunities for higher education.
Okay.
It is also real that government can't do it alone.
Sure.
So definitely other players must come in, because at the end of the day, the graduates that come out, they serve almost every aspect of the society. So I think it's imperative that every aspect of the society should also contribute towards the education of their citizens.
So let's take final remarks. I'll start from Ms. Florence, then we'll come with Prof, and then Prof. Dio. What is your final words or message to every government leader in the entirety of Africa in terms of building a quality research, innovative higher education space rather than compromising on quality and losing the best of our graduates?
Yeah, my final remark would be to increase the partnership, the linkages with the stakeholders. Everyone is concerned with the quality of education, be it the government, be it the industry, even the parents.
Yes.
So the partnership between all the stakeholders, if it's strongly developed, it will contribute much to the quality of education.
Great.
Yeah, for me, I think there's no question about the importance of quality of education. Here I mean teaching and learning and research in producing the right kind of graduates, because the only way African countries are going to take control and be active contributor to the global knowledge economy. So for governments, I think it's important to put in the right kind of investments, to encourage partnerships for people to be able to support higher education.
Yeah.
It is very tempting to massify education because there's increasing demand and therefore compromise on quality.
Yes.
That tendency needs to be resisted.
Okay.
To maintain quality, if you have produced the right kind of graduates, will enable the continent to move forward.
Yes.
I think I totally agree with what Florence and Nelson have said. From my side, maybe the only thing I can add is that, and maybe it's a question which you didn't ask, and that is to do with the aspect of training the academics to acquire the correct level of qualification. And that should be a government investment to make sure that we have academics who have got PhD qualifications. Because if we're going to be delivering what you refer to as quality teaching, quality research, the academics must have the correct qualification. And that is one thing that at this moment I will simply say that we are working on. And because it will also answer your first question of how are we preparing ourselves for the 2050, because the 2050 means that we need to have a correct mix of academics in the university to deliver on what the society and what the country needs.
Well then, so the discussion goes on and on until we get the best of education quality in our higher education space in Rwanda and also all over Africa. I was your host today, Ajimon Shudako, on AAU Talks, and I believe that you enjoyed the show. Keep watching AAU TV and see you next time. Bye.
The Association of African Universities, AAU, is an international non-governmental organization set up by universities in Africa to promote cooperation among themselves and the international academic community.
Mon nom est professeur Étienne Erouan-Eilé. Je suis le secrétaire général de l'Association des universités africaines qui est basée à Accra, au Ghana. Je vais vous parler de la création de l'Association des universités africaines. Il faut remonter dans les années 60 pour pouvoir comprendre le processus. Déjà en 1960, nos dirigeants estimaient que l'éducation est l'outil majeur pour pouvoir lutter contre la pauvreté et assurer le développement.
I am not Tumo Dlamini, the Director of ICT Services and Knowledge Management at the Association of African Universities. The Association of African Universities is a network of 400 universities in Africa. The biggest value that the universities benefit from being members of the association is this big platform that allows them to collaborate, allows them to work together, allows them to teach together. Through this platform, a university in North Africa can work with a university in Southern Africa, and also those in East Africa can work with those in West Africa.
Founded November 1967 at a conference in Rabat, Morocco, by heads of African higher education institutions, the association is currently headquartered in Accra, Ghana.
My name is Maxwell Amo-Hoyt. I'm the Director of Finance of the Association of African Universities. The association sustains itself from contributions from member universities and also from other development partners. Some of our development partners include the World Bank, other governmental agencies like the Swedish International Development Agency, UK Department for International Development, and other partners. We also receive a lot of support from other governments, especially the government of Ghana. Other partners include the African Union, which is more or less the parent organization of the Association of African Universities. The Association of African Universities hosts the Secretariat for the African Union's Continental Education Strategy, and by so doing, we provide coordinating roles for the African Union in helping members achieve their targets.
Déjà en 1960, nos dirigeants estimaient que l'éducation est l'outil majeur pour pouvoir lutter contre la pauvreté et assurer le développement. Et rappelons-nous que les années 60, la décade 60, a été une décade où la plupart des pays africains ont obtenu leur indépendance ou ont, disons, pris les dispositions pour être indépendants. C'était donc aussi l'année de développement, dans la mesure où tous ces pays indépendants devaient se retrouver de temps en temps pour parler de comment mettre ensemble leurs problèmes et trouver une solution commune à leurs problèmes. Et dans ce contexte-là, l'éducation était une priorité pour eux, surtout l'éducation universitaire. Et sur ce plan-là, les universités aussi se sont organisées grâce à l'UNESCO, qui a parrainé plusieurs réunions depuis Madagascar jusqu'au Maroc.
My name is Jonathan Umba. I'm the Director of Research and Academic Planning. The programs and projects that we run at AAU are consistent with our strategic plan, and they are implemented for our higher education stakeholders, namely the higher education institutions in Africa. These programs are implemented in such a way that our stakeholders will get the benefit of membership of our association. And our programs also are aligned with a number of global and international agendas on higher education, including the Continental Education Strategy for Africa and the Agenda 2063. So these programs are aligned with a number of international agendas with a view to promoting higher education in Africa.
The AAU is the apex organization and principal forum for consultation, exchange of information, and cooperation among universities in Africa.
I am Professor Nkusa Mahao, Vice Chancellor of the National University of Lesotho in the Kingdom of Lesotho in Southern Africa. There are roughly 77 universities that are affiliated with the AAU in the region,
But as you might be aware, there are a lot more universities that are as yet to take the membership of the Association of African Universities. Well, universities that are not members of the AAU are missing quite a lot. First of all, let's appreciate this one point, that the AAU is a main driver from the angle of training and capacitating the human resources of the continent, the agenda of the African Union 2063. So if an institution is not on board, it is missing the opportunity to leverage on the opportunities that are provided by the association in the area of training, human resource capital, training their own staff and students, the opportunities that are provided by the universalization of quality management on higher education on the continent, and many other opportunities that are provided.
Et en 1963, il y a eu une réunion à Khartoum, au Soudan, où les chefs des institutions d'enseignement supérieur ont décidé de créer l'Association des universités africaines. Finalement, la création va se faire à une conférence qui s'est tenue à Rabat au Maroc, et la création de l'Association des universités africaines a eu lieu le 12 novembre 1967.
I'm Prof. Hassan Kafi, AAU Governing Board member, representing for East African region. Also, I am the president of Plasma University, Mogadishu, Somalia. We really like to give a call for universities in Africa, especially in East Africa, those which are not members still in the Association of African Universities. We are calling them because we feel the organization is ours. It represents the voice of higher education in Africa being seen all over the world.
The COVID-19 pandemic has necessitated the need for higher education institutions to establish their impact through applied research. It is in this regard that the Africa Centers of Excellence for Impact Project, a higher education project supporting universities in West Africa, has engaged in groundbreaking researches in managing the virus within the sub-region. The 53 centers across the continent are putting in place measures to manage the pandemic in their respective countries. In Nigeria, the Africa Center of Excellence for Genomics of Infectious Diseases, ACEGID, at Redeemers University, in coordination with the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, was the first institution in Africa to successfully sequence genomes of SARS-CoV-2, which is the COVID-19 virus. This will strengthen surveillance for tracking mutations of the virus. The center has also developed a COVID-19 screening tool to measure individual risk level. Also, ACEGID seeks to use advanced genomics science to accelerate the production of a homemade vaccine against the virus. The West African Center for Cell Biology of Infectious Pathogens, WACBIP, a cell biology research center dedicated to the diagnostics of tropical diseases in sub-Saharan Africa at the University of Ghana, has also successfully sequenced genomes of SARS-CoV-2. This is a milestone in Ghana's response to the pandemic, as it will aid in the tracing of the sources of community infections in people with no known contact with confirmed cases. Other centers of excellence are contributing to knowledge on management of the virus through innovative research. Centers such as the Regional Transport Research and Education, TREC, hosted by the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST, examined how the COVID-19 is spreading in time and into new areas, its impact on urban mobility, and the environmental effect of the lockdown. To support continuous teaching and learning in their respective institutions, the Africa Centers of Excellence are adopting innovative measures by moving classes online. Learning management systems such as Moodle, Sakai, Google Classroom, among others, are being used. The Africa Center of Excellence project is a flagship program where the World Bank, in partnership with the French Development Agency, AFD, and regional partners such as the Association of African Universities and ECOWAS, are supporting African governments to invest in quality postgraduate education and applied research.
Hello viewers, and welcome to yet another edition of AAU Impact Stories, where we are celebrating academic mentors. My name is Ransom Bekun, your host. Today, the AAU cameras have picked an academic icon who has made it big on the higher education front. Our icon is an emerita professor at the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana. But before I introduce her, let's go for a short commercial break.
The Association of African Universities, in partnership with the All African Students Union and Al-Azhar University, Egypt, calls on African universities to participate in the first African Universities Olympics. Theme: Uniting African Universities through sports and recreation, mapping out strategies to achieve the Africa we want. The disciplines include basketball, football, long jump, triple jump, shot put, javelin, sprints, and a whole lot more. The teams will be formed according to the 5 geopolitical regions of Africa, namely West, East, South, North, and Central Africa. Venue: Al-Azhar University, Cairo, Egypt. Date: 14th to 18th of March 2019. Register now on blog.aau.org and also stand the chance of visiting the pyramids of Giza and other interesting sites in Cairo. For more information, visit blog.aau.org or call +233 2432 98464.
Welcome back, viewers. This is AAU Impact Stories, where we celebrate academic mentors. Before the break, I introduced the person that I'm going to talk to today. This person was acknowledged by the government of Ghana and given the award, the Order of the Volta Officer Class in 2008. She was also acknowledged by the Institute of African Studies, University of Ghana, as an emerita professor. It is my pleasure to welcome Professor Abna Lawyer Pechua Menu. Prof, welcome to AAU Impact Stories.
Thank you very much.
Prof,
yes,
you have made it big in Ghana. I saw your recent interview in the United States, that's somewhere in October. And we spoke about so many things. But today we're going to start from your very humble beginnings as a young person, what were your career ambitions growing up in Ghana?
Thank you very much. When I was growing up, initially I wanted to be a doctor.
Yes.
And but by the time I was about 12, 13, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer.
How come?
Well, I think growing up domestically, I saw a lot of what I considered injustice to women. And, you know, I used to be able to stand up to my father and...
then as a kid?
Yes, tell him off. And so it was my father who started calling me Abna lawyer, because I would when I thought he had been unfair, particularly to my mother, I would tell him. And I determined very early. Some of the issues that I have remained passionate about were formed from my childhood. I had a keen sense of injustice and doing things right. And I was determined to do so.
Was there any family traits that you would consider as being imbibed in you at that time, at that age?
Oh, well, I had grown up with my grandmother, who I'm named after her mother. You know, so she idolized me. I could do no wrong. If you got into a dispute with me, it didn't matter what I had done, she would take my side. And I was very small, so she was very protective of me. If I was fighting with my other siblings, she would come and say, "Hey, you big people, don't come and kill her for me," you know. So, but I wouldn't. I picked up some of her traits. She was a very frugal person. I was telling somebody recently how when I was growing up, I was really frugal. My grandmother was very frugal, and the way to benefit from her was to accompany her to the farm, because she kept her goodies and ate them on the farm. So I stayed with her. I started school with her. So when I moved back to Kumasi to live with my siblings, they used to laugh at me because I was quote unquote pressing it. Like I liked apem instead of yam. I didn't like rice. When I ate an egg, I would throw up, you know. So I was, and she was very simple, and I picked that up from her. In terms of the law, it was only my mother's uncle was a lawyer, but they really idolized him. I didn't, in fact, I think he was in the UK when I was growing up, so it was much later that I came into contact with him. When I was practicing myself, I saw him in the courts. I mean, I knew him, but I met him in the courts. So, but you know, growing up in a polygamous household, my father and my mother always lived together. The other wives did not live there, but inevitably generated a lot of tensions, and those were some of the injustices that I saw. And number one, I made up my mind I would never be in a situation like that myself at a very early age. But I also learned to speak up, you know. So, for instance, you know how traditionally our fathers got the best part of the meal. And when my mother was dishing up my father's food, I'd be sitting there and say, "Hey, how can you give all this food to one person? What about us?" So there were some parts of the chicken I refused to eat from a very early age. No chicken neck, no feet for me. No. I also wanted the breast and the good parts, you know.
Really?
So I just decided that no, everybody deserves to have something. You can't just pile up something for somebody because he's a man or he's your husband. So those were some of the traits, you know, little things, but they became important for me.
So with this militancy, when you went to secondary school, were you a leader, a student leader, or
well,
you played some
role? I went to a very good school, Wesley Girls High School, and they taught us to be independent, to speak up for injustice, you know, because we had this, I mean, you know, it took me a long time to realize that our headmistress was only in her 30s. In those days, they appeared ageless. These were very simple, dedicated women. If she went to England and she bought one dress, she virtually wore that dress the whole term. She wore, you know, play deck sandals. Yes. They wore play deck. They were very simple. If your shoe was torn and you took it to Miss Garnett, she herself would take thread and needle and fix it for you. So they taught us to be very public-oriented, service-oriented. So what we did in Wesley Girls was that when you got to Form 3, Form 4, Form 5, we went to the villages around to help less fortunate people. We would go to Ankafo Leprosarium. We would go to the psychiatric hospital in Ankafo to tidy the female patients, you know. We would help to braid their hair, etc. So they really imbued in us a spirit of self-sacrifice, like you are already privileged and you must learn to give back to society. And I would say that that is very much the trait of women who went to Wesley Girls. I don't want to boast, but if you think of our former Chief Justice Georgina Wood, our current Chief Justice Sophia Akufo, they are all Wesley Girls people. Henrietta Mensah Bonsu, Vicky, you know, we are all Wesley Girls people. Mrs. Chinri Hesse, all of those kinds of women. And they, Mrs. Sylvia Boy, they really instilled in us this sense, community engagement, public spiritedness, giving back, simplicity. And also, our education was such that we were very current with what was going on in the world. You know, so I remember that when it was the height, when I was in Form 4, Form 5, it was the height of the Vietnam War. And we knew all about it. We had, when I was in 6th form, I did French, and they had lecturers from University of Cape Coast who came to take us for oral French. And they really engaged us in a lot of social justice issues. I remember that when I was in Form 2 or Form 3, I wrote a letter which got published in the Daily Graphic.
And hold on. When you were in Form 2
or Form 3 in Wesley Girls,
at what age?
14, 15.
And you wrote
I wrote a letter and the school got it out, you know.
And it was published?
Yes, it was published. Nationally, you know. I mean, in the letters page. But so we were encouraged to assert ourselves, to believe that we could be as good as anybody else. And as my friend was saying, I read. When I went to Form 1, we didn't have a library, we had a reading room. I read everything. And when I didn't understand it, I had a dictionary. The way we got punished in Wesley Girls was that they sent you to what was called detention. And in detention, they gave you the dictionary and you had to copy from the dictionary. So for me, even when I was punished, it became a way of learning. So it was not punishment. You were confined to a space for an hour. But during that time, I used it to broaden my mind. So what happened was that, I mean, my mother did not have any formal education. My father was self-educated, but they believed utterly in education of all their children, utterly, male and female. And through the reading that I did, I took a lot of journeys in my mind. Long before I went anywhere, I knew about many of the conditions in those places.
With your siblings, were you the only one who passed out?
No,
I mean, education this way?
Well, I think we all make our choices, you know. In my immediate family, with my mother, there are 8 of us. My older sister went to 6th form in Abri Girls. She went to the UK, she pursued a course in nursing midwifery, and then I'm the second one. My sister after me, she also went to Wesley Girls, you know. My brothers, they all went to school. You know, I have a brother who has a PhD, I have others who have masters and things like that. So, but yeah, we have had different trajectories and different interests and passions.
Career paths as well. Okay, so did your headmistress at the secondary school ever play a role in mentoring you into what to become?
I think so, and our assistant headmistress, Miss Bowman, they were very particular about us carrying ourselves well. You know, our motto in Wesley Girls is speak true, live pure. There's another one, and follow the king, and the king is King Jesus, you know. Okay. So all those mottos, the motto, you internalized it, you know. So you learned the importance of integrity, of truth, of public service, and and of course your own moral education. And I was a bit of a rebel in secondary school. I mean,
were you ever punished for being rebellious?
Oh yes,
several times.
Oh yes. I mean, I used to challenge authority. I needed to understand the why. It's not do it, but I needed to understand why I needed to do it. If you could persuade me, then you had no problem. But I was against just the rigid enforcement of rules. You know, these are rules. They had to make sense to me, and I think that has been a trait all my life. I mean, if you know, my son has this friend whose father was my contemporary at university. And then they would meet him and they would say, hey, your mother, she used to wear batagari in university and all of those. So my son would come home and say, hey, mommy, tell me about those days, you know. So I have been rebellious. I have participated. And I would really credit Wesley Girls with whatever inherent ideas that I had. I think that Wesley Girls nurtured them. You know, I would say that to a large extent, university is important, but by the time you get to university, you have formed many of your traits, you know, because it's in secondary school, at least how it was in the old days, you spent 7 years. That was a long time. 5 years if you didn't go to sixth form, and then two more years if you did A levels, and then you have this boarding system with house mistresses, and they do a lot to shape your character. You know, a lot of people are very careless when they are home, but when you get to secondary school, there's a certain discipline. University is different. By the time you get to university, you're already an adult. You're supposed to think, and there's nobody monitoring you. If you don't want to go to lectures, that is your problem.
So you then entered University of Ghana, Mensa Sabaho.
Yes.
Where now you were not under strict supervision as you were in Wesley Girls.
But I had formed that kind of character.
You had.
Yes, you know. Yes, so I entered university, and we entered university in September of 1971. And then in January of 1972, that was the first coup, their champion coup.
Yes.
You know, and it was the Yentua and all of those things. And it appealed to me, and I participated actively.
In the uprising?
No, it wasn't.
It was an uprising against...
No, it wasn't. It was a military coup.
Yes.
And then...
And the Achampon regime was not paying debts to...
So it renounced the debts, and we supported that because we thought that it would give us a breathing space. But when the Achampon regime turned dictatorial, I also
rebelled against that.
I didn't. Well, I joined in the
rebellion.
Yes, in the demonstrations against that. And this was a time where they closed universities quite a bit, where the soldiers would come on campus, they would beat us, all of those things. I was part of it.
You were?
Yes. No apologies. I was part of it because it was affecting all of us. You know, this is the beginnings of hardship when really this is the time of when phrases like essential commodities, a lot of queues, there was a lot of military brutality, and then Achampon was succeeded by Akufu, and then there was but by that time I finished university in 76.
Yes.
I finished my first degree. I finished in 74.
Yes, but were you pursuing the law program?
Yes, I was admitted into the Faculty of Law. So I got my LLB in 1974. And then in 1976, I finished my bar. So from 74 to 76, I pursued my bar. So we were going to school in Mokola.
Okay.
And then when I finished in 76, I left to Dar es Salaam to to do a master's in law.
Why did you go to Dar es Salaam? Because University of Ghana was there.
Well,
then you could have gone to Europe.
I had spent 6 years at the University of Ghana. I wanted a break. Yes, I could have gone to Europe. And indeed, when I sent my forms to
Dar es Salaam?
No, to the dean to sign for me, he started filling it. Then he looked up and he said, "You are very funny." And I said, "Why?" And he says, "But all your mates are going to the US and to other places. Why do you want to go to another Africa?" So I said, "Oh, I'm sure I'll have so many opportunities in future to go to Europe." And interestingly, you know how I got to Dar es Salaam? I got a scholarship from the Association of African Universities.
You mean?
Yeah.
You got a scholarship?
I got a scholarship. It was
from where I am now?
Yeah, so I'm telling you a piece of history. I got a scholarship. In those days, the office was near 37, eh?
Viewers,
no,
we are talking to Emerita Professor Techua Benu. We are going for a very short break, and when we come back, you're going to hear more about her postgraduate endeavors. Please stay tuned.
The Association of African Universities, AAU, under the patronage of His Excellency Abdel Fattah Said Hussein Khalil El-Sisi, President of Egypt, and Ahmed Mohamed Ahmed El Tayeb, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, presents the AAU's Conference of Rectors, Vice Chancellors and Presidents of African Universities from 8th to 11th of July 2019. Theme: Role of higher education institutions in promoting the Continental Education Strategy, CESA 1625. Call for papers have been announced for the following sub-themes: promoting science and mathematics education, expanding technical and vocational education and training opportunities, revitalizing and expanding tertiary education, research and innovation, promoting peace education and conflict prevention at all levels of education, improving management of education systems, and harnessing the capacity of ICT to improve access and quality of education and training. Promoting mobility through harmonization of quality assurance and accreditation systems, and identifying new directions to improve the management of education in Africa. Submit your paper abstracts of not more than 2 pages online at www.aau.org/subs/abstracts. Deadline for submission is 15th March 2019. For further details on Corevip 2019, please visit events.aau.org/Corevip.
Viewers to AAU Impact Stories. You are following us on AAU TV at tv.aau.org and on our social media handles. We have been talking to Emerita Professor Abdaloya Techua Menu, and just before the break, she had just indicated how she got to Dar es Salaam to do her Master of Law degree. Professor, so AAU, which is the Association of African Universities, gave you a scholarship to do your law degree.
Okay, so now let me backtrack. You were asking me why I didn't go to Europe. You know, when I was in, I think when I was in 4th year or 5th year, Professor Akila Konsoya had returned was at the university, and Professor Kwesi Botre. In fact, I took a class with Professor Kwesi Botre on the legal aspects of international trade and investment. And both of these professors had taught at the University of Dar es Salaam.
Okay.
So they encouraged me to think about going to the University of Dar es Salaam. And as I said, I was able to secure an AAU scholarship. It was actually a Ford Foundation grant to the AAU, and I thought it was important because I had developed a huge interest in Africa and African issues, and I thought that to properly understand Africa, I needed to live in another African country to experience that, you know. And so I proceeded to the University of Dar es Salaam in 1976. And it was a 2-year program. I did the coursework in a year, and then I came back to Ghana in 1977 to do field work for my master's thesis. And then I went back and I completed, and I returned to Ghana. So in fact, in between, when I left for Dar es Salaam, because the way their semester runs, it starts in May. So is it May or July? And in those days, we ended our year like in June.
Yes.
So immediately I finished, I left to Dar es Salaam. So I couldn't be called to the bar with my classmates. You see, because the bar, the call is normally in October, and I was already there. So it was not till the following year when I came back for
your field work.
I had a private call. You mean what you do is that you go to the office of the Chief Justice with another lawyer, and Professor Sawyer was my sponsor, and a few friends, and I got called privately. So even though I had qualified in 1976, I was actually called to the bar in 1977. So I finished in 1978. I returned to Ghana, and then I went to the Institute of African Studies. So I spent my whole life explaining to people why, even though I did law, I did not go to the Faculty of Law, but I went to the Institute of African Studies.
You've just answered the question I was going to ask.
No, I knew you would ask me. But the point, though, is that even though I was in the Institute of African Studies, I taught courses for the Faculty of Law. After a while, it was disruptive for my research because I had been employed as a research fellow. So it didn't matter how much teaching I did. I'd be assessed on the basis of my research, not on the basis of my teaching. But I taught courses for the Faculty of Law, both in the Faculty of Law, and then they had a course in the business school, which I taught for them also. You know, but after a while, it was disruptive for me, so I stopped. But what I did was that I also practiced law.
You practiced law?
Yes, I practiced law. And you must understand, between 78 and 82, it was a very difficult period. This was the time when people were abandoning lecture rooms.
And going to Nigeria.
Nigeria, I mean, I had neighbors who had turned their vehicles into taxis. They were driving at night. Half the time, moonlighting. Half the time, the university was not even in session. You know, because there were all these closures and things. And so it filled my time. You know, so I used to practice. I had a senior in town in whose chambers I practiced from. And I did different kinds of cases, you know. I did different kinds of cases. And I continued practicing until just around 92 when I decided to go to the US. Yeah, because, and I remember the last few cases I did, because the last few cases I did was for people in Nsawam prison who had been convicted by the public tribunals. Because some of my friends had found themselves in Nsawam prison, and I used to go and visit them.
Some of your friends?
Yes, some of my friends.
In academia?
They were...
then, friends in general?
Well, they were friends from university who, you know, in those days it was very easy to find yourself in prison. You could be picked up on one charge or other. So they were like political prisoners.
Was Ghana not practicing democracy then?
No, you know,
we did not. Military rule.
Yes, we didn't get the constitution, and the constitution came into effect in 1993.
93.
Yes. So I'm talking about the period before. Yes, I told you this is the period between 1978, 78, and 1993. So when they got to prison, they were political prisoners, because normally, you know, they just do the no court decree, that no court shall detain. But what they found in prison was that there were many people who were in prison who really didn't understand. These were ordinary people who had been sentenced to 25 years, 50 years by public tribunals, you know.
Did you not fear for your life?
No. And actually, it was
amazing.
It was interesting because, you know, to bring an appeal, you must get the record of proceedings of the old trial to use it as a basis. And the problem with many of those public tribunals was that there was no record of proceedings. So here's somebody who is in jail, and there's no record of how they got to jail to be able to, it was very easy. I remember some cocoa clerk who had been convicted and sentenced to 50 years. So I remember when I moved to the US, I was so happy the day I got a letter from him informing me that thanks to me, he had been released from prison.
But before you went to the US, were you not abandoning your core as a lawyer? Because as you could see, there were so many cases.
I was in the university, remind you.
Yes, you were.
You see, the point is that the university has always allowed lawyers to practice.
Okay.
So long as you don't neglect your core duties, because given the salaries that most lecturers earned, if they did not do that for especially the professionals,
they will leave.
They would leave.
Okay.
So long as you don't abandon
your core duties.
Yes.
Yes. And yours was research.
Yeah, but even then, so it's the same as those in the law faculty.
Okay.
So you must make sure you can't, at the end of the time of the year or a period when they are assessing you can't say because I was practicing law, I haven't published. Okay. They will check you out. But you can do that because that is the life of an academic. You have a lot of leeway, and it is for you to
make the maximum use of it.
Yes. Yeah. So you were asking me, was I not afraid? There is a concept called a public intellectual, and I would say that is what I am. That a public intellectual is, I didn't set out to be so, but public intellectuals are people who don't just confine themselves to the classroom. They are very aware of the world around them. And public intellectuals exercise their mandate, whatever, in different ways. Okay. Some of them write, some of them take on governments, some of them do some of these things like I'm saying. And I wasn't the only one who was defending people. Yes. I remember there was a senior lawyer, and one day he met me in court, and he was so angry. And he said, "Hey, you people are spoiling the profession. Are not even charging properly." So they felt undermined because, and I mean, so if people in the Trade Union Congress had a case, they knew that they could come to me.
Exactly.
Because I would take it
almost
on. And
pro bono.
Yes, pro bono. I was not really concerned about the cost. I was more concerned about the services, the injustice that was happening, and I was prepared to make a difference.
I think your early childhood really imbibed in you this
Yeah,
trait.
but also when I went to the university, I also met a group of like-minded people.
Okay.
I was talking about meeting Professor Sawyer, Professor Butri, all of those people, and I think that we kind of mentored each other, or I was mentored, I was younger, I was mentored, and it helped to create a certain consciousness in me. Yeah. So I moved to the US. Initially, I was invited to go and lecture at Indiana University for a year. But by that time, in the law tradition, we normally don't do PhDs. It's not considered necessary. But because I was an Institute of African Studies and my research by this time was turning more and more to women's rights issues, I decided that I wanted to acquire a PhD in the social sciences. But initially, when I went to the US, I taught for a year. And then after the year, I continued teaching, but I also became a student. And I had 2 young children with me. So you can imagine that it was not easy because you had to do a lot of things with the children.
Very interesting stories that we are hearing from Emerita Professor Techiwamenu. Let's take this break and hear from Auntie Vicky, who is testifying about Professor Techiwamenu.
My name is Vicky Reko Ando. I'm a journalist by profession, and I practice public relations as well. You will ask, how did I come to know Professor Techiwamenu? Techiwamenu, we met at Wesley Girls High School when we entered in 1969 as teenagers. Actually, I had just turned 13, and she was yet to turn 13. And that's how we clicked. I mean, at first years, there were 90 of us, but we were divided into 3 groups. The youngest those in the middle age and those older. So we were in the youngest group, which was the J class, junior class. We clicked from that age. Her house was next to my house. I was in Block B, she was in Block C. Why did we click? Techua she looked very studious when we met at Wesley Girls. She was always reading at dining hall. Techua has the book on her lap to read. And she was one of the youngest to have ever worn glasses, spectacles, as we say that. So in those days when you wear spectacles at that age, you were considered to be very studious. I was intrigued because I wanted to be studious as well. And so I followed her and we became friends. We ended up in the 6th form in the same English class. And her intelligence in literature actually inspired me. And so that's how we had stayed friends. So when after A-levels we went to the University of Ghana, we entered the same year. She was in Mensa Saba Hall and I was in Volta Hall, but we still kept our friendship. We were seeing each other. She was coming to my home, I was going to her home. She knew my sisters, she knew my parents, siblings, I knew her siblings, I knew her parents. So that's how come the friendship has carried on up to this age. So when we left the University of Ghana, we still continued. I mean, she went on to do her professional legal law degree. Techua has had a passion for women issues, women and children issues, and that's my passion as well. As a writer, I write a lot about women, especially women in Ghana, in our kind of setup and how we can help. That is her passion as well. So I have come across her lectures, I've come across her publications in that direction, women and children. And as I said, I mean, anytime she finds anything interesting in that direction, online or elsewhere, she shares with me. We make comments to each other on what we have read and what. There's a lot of publications that she has done. So apart from knowing her as a friend, we also share in common our passion for women, our passion for children in that professional world. And we share ideas together.
Welcome back, viewers, to AAU Impact Stories, where we are celebrating academic mentees, and the AAU cameras are now on Emerita Professor Abena Techua Menu. Prof, you were in the US, you went to Indiana, you lectured, you became a student, you had children, and what else? Did you work there?
Well, I was teaching.
You were teaching?
That was how I paid my fees.
Okay.
I was, of course, I was on study leave with pay, but that couldn't have paid my tuition. So once I taught, I had a tuition waiver, and then I was also paid, and that allowed me to cover my living expenses.
Over there.
And I was also publishing. I was teaching, I was studying, I was a mother, and I was also publishing. I was attending conferences. I was coming to Ghana. I think I came to Ghana every year when I was in the US, and I was actively publishing. So by the time I came back, I got my promotion when I was there because I was publishing actively.
Academics, you either publish or you perish.
Yes, and I remember when I was writing my thesis, it became a family enterprise because the children saw me, so each time they will ask me, so how is the thesis, you know, how is the dissertation, you know, and they were very young, but it became a living thing for them, and I think it also helped them because they also understood the importance of hard work and determination. So I got my PhD and I returned to Ghana in 1998, and soon after I came back, I became Deputy Director of the Institute, and I think a year or so later I became an Associate Professor. So it shows you that I was actively publishing.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
and
it appears that all your life you've spent your working life in academia.
Yes.
Particularly in the
Institute of African Studies.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
But
then you also went to UNECA.
Well, that is much later.
Okay.
But also as you know, it's interesting because I was a research fellow, senior research fellow, associate professor, and I used my life because sometimes it's like, so what do you research on or something? And a lot of it, like beginning to research on women's rights issues, a lot of it came from observations from my own childhood and also looking at the situation around. You know, I was telling you about the difficult years in Ghana when we had the structural adjustment programs and all of that. So quite a bit of my research is on the structural adjustment program and how it affected, in particular, women and women traders, you know.
Do you know the number of publications you have? A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
50 something, you know. And I haven't stopped publishing, you know. In fact, I have
even as a grandmother.
Oh yeah, well, what has it got to do with anything? You know, so long as you can breathe and write, you do that. You know, yes. And I continued, and then I became director of the institute. But actually, what I was going to say was that along the line, because I worked in the higher education area, I also developed an interest in higher education, and in fact, that was where I had a lot of interactions with the AAU. And because I became a member of the UNESCO's working group on higher education, and because I was looking at the conditions of students and lecturers and institutional issues, you know, and I remember that at some point I was doing quite a bit of work for the AAU. And then I also used to serve on the board of UNESCO's Institute for International Institute for Education. Yes, in Paris, you know, for several years. First in my personal capacity, and later when I went to UNECA, I was also representing UNECA then. As for UNECA, it was after I retired from the university, and that I went to work for the UN for, it's exactly about 5 years ago that I went to work for UNECA for about almost 4 years.
So at the Institute of African Studies, what were some of the transformational changes that you brought there as director?
It's hard for you to talk about transformational changes that you brought, you know, but obviously I must have done something because the University of Ghana recognized my achievements and gave me a meritorious service award in 2007. But I think that we are a research institute. We had gone through very difficult times when there was virtually no money for research. You know. So as a director, one of your tasks was to find money for the institute, but also to encourage and build up excellence. You know, and I think that our institute became recognized. I wouldn't say that I was the one who brought it. There were other directors before me who had done the work, but I continued in that tradition. One of the things that I did, which was very satisfactory for me, was that for many years before, since I joined the institute had always spoken about establishing a chair, a Kwame Nkrumah chair in African Studies, because Kwame Nkrumah was really important for the formation of the institute, for the foundation of the institute. So in 2007, when we were celebrating Ghana's 50th anniversary as a nation, I was able to write and get funding from the Ghana at 50 Secretariat. And through Anglo Gold Ashanti, we got a $200,000 grant to establish the chair in African Studies. So I felt personally very satisfied that this was something that other directors had long dreamt of, and I was able to ensure that it came to fruition.
Congratulations.
Thank you. During my term. We also have this, when we were established as an institute, we were gifted a chalet in South Legon, you know, and one of the directors or acting directors before me had managed to get it renovated. But we had a lot of land, and I actually took a bank loan to put up a 36-room. There's a place there just behind the chalet, we call it Yiri Lodge, to have it built as a conference and
facility
and hotel accommodation facility. So it's still there. I was there last week, and it operates. I'm not. I can't say that all the money has been paid off, but we got it operational. But the important thing for me was the many programs and research projects that the institute was able to execute, which resulted in a lot of publications and visibility for the institute.
Were you the first female director?
Well, there was an acting director before me who was also female. But interestingly, since then, and since after me, all the directors have been female. And currently we have another female director.
So you were a trailblazer?
Well, maybe the acting director was the trailblazer. She was acting. Then I became director. After me, we had another female acting director. Then we had a substantive female director. And there is still another female director. Yeah. But you see, everybody, the institute has been in existence for over 50 years.
Yes.
And throughout all that time, we have had male directors, and nobody talks about it. Once you get a female director, it becomes a story,
Yeah.
So I think that it's about excellence. I'm sure that things will change, but I know that women definitely have a place in the Institute of African Studies, as they do in many other institutions around Ghana.
Okay, what about capacity building, human capacity building? How did you impact your knowledge, your skills to build capacity of, say, lawyers or whoever?
I have been an academic, so that is where I would claim any successes. I think that I have had many students over the years, and I have met many people in different fields. I remember visiting a colleague who was on admission in Kolebu, and then the doctor comes in to do his rounds, and then my colleague introduces me and he says, "Oh, you taught me African studies." So I've taught so many people over the years, and sometimes I go places and you see a very old man who is coming to say that I taught him, which I always find amusing. So I have taught countless numbers of people at undergraduate, graduate, PhD level, etc. And I am very satisfied with that. I'm very satisfied because the teaching is not just that I went and stood in front of them, but that I challenged them. I help them to develop critical thinking skills, and they still remember. Yes. So I feel very proud about that. I've also been passionate about helping people to achieve their potential, whether they are my students or not. And for me, I think that education is the single transformational gift that you can give to anybody, because they can do so much with it.
Come 2008, you are going down memory lane. You were given the award of Order of the Volta Officer Class by the then Kufuor administration. What was that? What did that mean to you?
Let me make a confession. Do you know that I was not in Ghana? I had gone to Oxford University to attend a conference, so I actually missed the ceremony.
Oh my goodness.
So it was here, and then when I came back, I was told that, and in 2008, after 2008, there was a change of government. But that was not it. Apparently, they have some different. I have the whole thing. It's in some big green box. They say they give different badges to men and female, and the one for females, they had run out. So it took a long time before they arrived at my house to come and present it to me. So of course I am honored if your country honors you for contributions to higher education. It is certainly something to be proud of. I'm honored, but as I have said, to my shame and regret, I was not actually present at the ceremony.
But with that award, are you, or can you conveniently say you are a fulfilled person?
Oh well, not because of that award, but because of I think I feel blessed. I feel that yes, I'm blessed. I had parents who supported me. I had family who supported me. I had good teachers. I had all along the way, from primary through secondary, university, especially university. I didn't always agree with my teachers because, again, I wanted to understand why things worked a certain way, you know. But I thank so many people who have supported me in my endeavors. I have my family, my children are my biggest fans, you know. And
talking about children, how many do you have?
I have 2 children. My daughter is a lawyer. She's actually a partner at a law firm in the United States. My son is an engineer. He works here.
In Ghana.
Yeah, in Ghana. He's an environmental engineer.
You have so many publications. And you serve on so many boards.
I have served on so many boards.
You currently serve on so many boards according to the records that I have.
Not so many. It's reduced. Yes, it's reduced.
This is a reduction.
Oh, much. A lot. A real
you are
reduction.
the vice chair of the National, or Commissioner of the National Development Planning Commission.
Yes, I was recently reappointed. I used to be a commissioner until 2014, and then in the recent vote, I'm a commissioner, and my colleagues elected me as the vice chair at the first meeting. And then I'm a trustee at the Institute of Development Studies at the University of Sussex in the UK. And then I'm on this advisory board of the Africa Portal, Society for International Development. That's not a lot.
And you are a member of the Governing Council, Society for International Development, as you said. Member of the advisory board, EU Evidence and Research Facility for the Horn of Africa, etc., etc., etc. Do you really have time for yourself?
I have plenty of time. I have plenty of time. There are 24 hours in a day, and if you wake up early, you will be amazed the things you can do by 10 o'clock in the morning. That will be, if you manage to wake up around 6 every day, 4 solid hours, you cannot imagine what you can do. And in the evening, you can still work for another 3 or so hours. I mean, I used to work a lot. Now it's much reduced. You know, I used to regularly go to bed at 2 a.m. Now I don't, you know. So, yes, and I still, you know, there's a church down here where I go, the Methodist church that you saw on the way. I have friends, I socialize.
And you're a chorister?
No, I'm not. I can't sing at all. When I was in school, I was told not to sing. That I like listening to the songs, but I cannot sing. But there is a lot of time. If you manage your time, there is a lot. And I still publish, you know, and I do consultancies too. Yeah, there's a lot of time. I think that whilst you have strength and breath, you should use it. You know, because a time will come, and nobody will tell you when the time has come, when you will not be able to do it. So I thank God that I
have the energy and the strength.
Good health and the energy, and I have the support, and I have a good support mechanism to do that. And I like to entertain. I like to cook for my friends and family.
That's what you do during your leisure.
I like to relax that way. Sometimes I invite people. They say, "What is it?" I say, "Nothing. Just come
and enjoy yourself."
We get tired every day. We are going to funerals and things. Just come and relax and enjoy yourself. And I like a good conversation. I follow national and international events very closely. It's very important to me.
An emeritus professor told me once that a good conversation never ends. Unfortunately, in the interest of time, we may have to wrap up. But before we do so, will Emerita Professor Echuamen just give a word of advice to the young and upcoming students, lecturers, and other people, what you feel should lead them into living such a meritorious life that you have been living?
Thank you. Well, it's always difficult to give advice, but I would, as I have said, hard work never killed anybody. And yeah, I think it is. Hard work is important. Staying in touch with people, with your roots, with reality is also important because in the end it's all about people.
Okay.
And it's important not to regard yourself as being too important. And I think that a life of service is worth it. Money is good, but it's not everything. And I really think that I think that as Africans we are always challenged, and it's important that we make a change where we are, in whichever area we find ourselves.
So with these few words from Professor Techuamenu, we've come to the end of another episode of AAU Impact Stories. Thank you very much. Stay tuned in for the next program.
Welcome to AAU TV, the voice of higher education in Africa. Today we bring you exclusive highlights of sport and interviews at the 26th Ghana University Sport Association GOSA Games 2020 at the University of Ghana, Legon. This year's GOSA Games features 11 universities, which includes the host university, the University of Ghana, the defending champions University of Cape Coast, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, University of Education Winneba, University of Professional Studies Accra, University for Developmental Studies, University of Energy and Natural Resources, the University of Health and Allied Sciences, the University of Mines and Technology, as well as this year's new entrants, the Ghana Institute of Journalism and the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration in this year's GOSA Games 2020. Over 2,000 athletes from all the 11 universities competed in sports disciplines such as athletics, badminton, basketball, beach volleyball, football, goalball, hockey, handball, netball, table tennis, tennis, and volleyball. AAU TV promises to bring you all the tidbits, the joy, the clamoring, the disappointment, the tears, and the victories in this year's GOSA Games 2020. Please stay tuned for more of the GOSA Games 2020 only on AAU TV. We will be right back.
This is Etu Moses Emmanuel from Gimpa, repping life at the GOSA Games. Keep watching AAU TV, the voice of higher education in Africa. Boom!
the Gusa Games 2020. And I have here with me Gustav from KNUS, who is the captain for the basketball team. Hello Gustav, how are you doing?
I'm good, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How did the game go?
It went well. I mean, altogether, I think our team played well. Even though we took the loss, but I think our team played well. We were relentless. I mean, at the end of the game, UW was a better side, so props to them.
So I believe you are going to have another match with other team, right?
Yeah, it's a long tournament. We have about 7 more games to play, so we're just going to keep our head up. I'm just going to motivate my players to keep our head up. We are playing UCC on Saturday. We are resting tomorrow, so we're going to go back to the drawing board, make all the corrections, and go and play UCC on Saturday, and make sure we win.
I have here with me Benjamin, who is from the winning team at University of Education. Hello Benjamin, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Okay, so how did the game go?
It was quite tough. They were a better side, but then we showed them what we got, and then hard work pays. So basketball is all about 90% mindset, and then we had to put it in, and then we just had to win.
You being from the winning team, I believe you reached your expectations, right?
Yeah, most def.
What should your fan expect from you from the next match?
They should expect good basketball, and basketball made in Winneba, and not basketball made in Tech.
Allow me please to move on to the first aspect on investing in ICT infrastructure for online open and distance learning. So for that aspect, we have one of our panelists who is by the name of Professor Luvuyo Lalentle, supported. Professor Luvuyo is the Executive Director for Planning and Quality Assurance at the University of South Africa, popularly known as UNISA. He is a former Vice Rector, Teaching and Quality Assurance at Northwest University in South Africa. He has served as the Director, Institutional Audits at the Council on Higher Education. He has worked in higher education for more than 30 years. His writing has been largely in transformation in higher education, planning and teaching and learning. So, Prof, you are most welcome to share with us on investment in ICT infrastructure for online and open and distance learning. You see, we picked also UNISA because it has got a well-known record of more than 140 years of experience in ODL and online. So, Prof. Lalentle, you are most welcome on board.
Thank you, Program Director, and good afternoon to the colleagues. I would want to share my screen, and I hope you either can assist in doing so, if possible, from your side. Well, let me go there.
You can do it from there, Prof.
Okay.
Yes, it's okay. We can see it.
Can see it. I will not project my face, but colleagues, I'm just gonna run through the slides in a way. I think having issues around quality assurance in a digital world is upon us, and we need to gain traction by ensuring that we can be able to deliver learning within the COVID and in a post-COVID context. Having said so, I plan to just talk about online delivery and open distance e-learning and e-working context that we found ourselves in. And I'll look at infrastructure consideration, quality prescripts that needs attention, and deal with lesson learned from University of South Africa, and also deal with issues that I will close on in terms of recommendations. Having said so, I guess we are all conversant that within the new text, we have had challenges with the COVID-19, which has brought us to where, and critical issues that we need to consider as we get into this wave of the pandemic is the fact that issues of social justice, who's got access to technology and how people get access to technology are critical for us as we work in that particular context. So I think it's also important to note that online learning has become then a vehicle to actually communicate between staff members and students, and also to enable them to be part of the fourth industrial revolution, where online delivery and courseware is going to become the major driver in terms of teaching and learning space. And some of the issues, I think in my country, South Africa, the lockdown has actually put starkly into our face the disparities that exist from the haves and the have-nots, and from urban and rural communities. And I think even in the African continent, we have those kind of challenges that we have to contend with. And I think infrastructure becomes an important aspect. Things that we're talking about is network coverage in the remote areas, and then also those should be taken in cognizance as we define these things, and also availability of data and devices at all our kind of the other thing that was my next slide talks to issues of saying, where are we? And if you wanted to know, for those that are fundis or understand this thing, we are at a phase where our teaching and learning space are facilitated by the internet. And then also we have actually moved from a point where as universities we open in where's by an access.
Prof. Lalenhle, may I just come? Sorry, you see, and read. Some are suggesting that log out and then log in again. I just want to find out what people think.
Okay, I could finish my thing because basically I would know the sequence of my ideas, and then, but I think the slides can be shared at a later stage.
Yes, the clean slides.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was saying that we are moving from a to almost getting to be an internet-enabled environment, which that environment will also talk towards moving to fully online facilitation kind of thing. And in that context, then, computers and devices were really critical, and which also cell phones, smartphones have come to the fore in terms of those issues. And then, having also spoken to you, I think are critical issues that I thought were important in terms of this presentation, which were consideration that to make in respect to quality of the infrastructure. And some of those issues would be things that speaks to us that pertain to collaborations between lecturers and staff, between students and their lecturers is quite important. And then also other issues that I think are critical for us to note was that how do we capacitate the support staff who, through either library services, they provide e-books, and then also students are able to access the databases to get materials and information from those particular things. What is important about infrastructure matters. Maybe let me ask you, Chair, while I'm talking, can you resend the presentation mail? I'm going to open in another gadget and still talk to it.
Okay. Now, can we stop completely, Prof? This is inevitable. And then let's say right now it's like let's say by 5 past.
Dr. Makuku, we can just stop sharing the screen and work and make Prof present, please. We don't need to stop the meeting. We just need to stop sharing the screen and then we present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me, sorry, Prof.
I'll stop sharing, yes.
I'm also listening to the audience because it's important that if we don't go along, they are the ones whom we mean to save. So maybe now if it's not distracting, we can continue, you finish and then we just agree on what time we are going to come back. Like, is it 5 past, after 5 minutes or after 10 minutes? Maybe 5 minutes is okay to relog in. Okay, Prof, you can.
Yes, Chair. I think at some point, a few things that were critical when I was explaining, I was saying that we have moved from an internet supported to also more remote learning because of social distance issues that have come our way. Then few things that are important. We assume that with appropriate infrastructure, we'll be able to improve student outcomes through online facilitation. Also, we'll be able to enhance student success through a proper curriculum design for online performance. And then also, we hope that we could integrate technology into our teaching and learning. And we believe that it will bring some motivation for students and staff and understand. Also, it will help us with understanding the learner behaviors through learner analytics, and then also promote an interactive online learning which will provide on-time feedback for students, access to materials at any time, and access to material remotely. I think colleagues, quality insights for consideration, the ICT infrastructure, few things that I think are important for us now to note as we get into this journey. Is our ICT accessible through different devices? That's important. Can different devices access our learning materials? Are there budgets to develop and update ICT to keep up with the developments? Are universities also providing access to databases in the library resources, such as e-books for our students? Dedicated ICT support staff and students? And then also, is it capable of providing synchronous and asynchronous communication tools to the people? Other issues that we're interested in is that are there unified user services or ICT services? And also, are we trying to find out if ICT requirements are being fulfilled, meaning that by business, the people who are not technocrats or politicians, who are academics, are their needs satisfied through this provision and this virtual learning environment created within that particular space. Quite a number of people are interested in to say UNISA has been in operation since March. We never closed, and we've just run examinations there. Therefore, what are the things that we have done to save the academic year? What we have done is that students were given the option to defer their examination to the next examination period. And over and above, there were considerations that were made for students who don't have gadgets to actually acquire such. And fortunately, 60% of our students out of the 380,000 plus students had gadgets. And also we looked at alternative assessment methods used, such as portfolio, open books, examination, oral examination within the context of the COVID-19 that we had. Therefore, all our students were able to take examination or at their respective places or wherever they could get connectivity. And I just want to give you some few stats about UNISA was able to run a class, meaning that a facilitated session of 13,000 students online at one given point. And also between March and now, we have received over 3 million assignments which have been uploaded on our systems. Therefore, it pushes that your IT infrastructure should be beyond reproach, but it does not mean that we did not have our own challenges. But few things that I can share with you is that there is an open distance e-learning project implementation that is being run and rolled off for the university as part of its strategy. And then also we are investing on our ICT infrastructure to ensure that the November-December examinations will be done online. We're not going back to any venue-based exams as far as our thinking is for now. There is an online examination task team to actually take lessons from this session of examinations and make sure that there are improvements. And also there is a collaboration tools such as MS Microsoft and Zooms that are being used. And then we mainly use the Microsoft Word. Laptops and computers with VPN facilities to enable working from home have been that, and the university have invested huge sum of money to provide data to students. I think there is 30 gigs of data per month to students and 10 gigs anytime, 20 gigs at night. And this scheme will run from mid-May to mid-July. This was meant to accelerate and enable students to do their examinations online. Having said so, as I finish up, I think what's important is planning, management and governance, and also having business continuity plans that would actually assist you to ensure that your infrastructure enable your business, which meant managing the risk among students and staff. And we have done all the compliance aspects that government have really asked us to do. And then going forward, I think we have reprioritized our resources and put them so that they can enable the business to continue. Other issues that we have done on the aspect of, I call cheating in exams. Social media has actually assisted us because students tend to report one another when those things happen. Therefore, we've picked up those, and we have students do what we call an honor pledge, which confirms that their work they're submitting within this open book examination is entirely their own. That's one step. The second step is that they cannot get any help from any other people, like ghostwriters or any people that sells essays and all these kind of things. And we also have turned it in as something that we detect similarity indexes and all these kind of things. But then cheating or collusion exam is a disciplinary offense at UNISA, and we take that as serious, and we reserve the right to use software application screens in exams to match to electronic sources of the work submitted to other things. And we're exploring iris recognition and also proctoring tools to enable us to do this in the next kind of thing. Colleagues, what I want to say then in my closing slide is that in order to have success in this new normal, you need to ensure that the basics are there. There is a functional learning management system. There are a team of instructional designers assigned to faculties to assist in developing the programs and ensuring that the programs are fully integrated. And there should be a functional help desk for ICT to support both students and academics. And then also, you cannot do that without executive management support. And also, we must always remain and be vigilant that it remains a teaching and a learning function rather than it be driven by the administrators and other people. But therefore, what I'm saying, colleagues, it will also need for you to have a communication strategy in order to run up these things. I think I want to stop there, Madam Chair, and then allow other colleagues to.
Thank you all, and good afternoon all. Yeah, mine is just to support what the last speaker said on the issue of ICT infrastructure. He has said a lot of things. Just some few things to add. The basic thing is that for any institution to have a very strong infrastructure for ICT, that institution must have an ICT master plan depending on the hardware needs. Because if you don't have a master plan, it means you will just be trying to, it's like trial and error. So you must have a master plan for your ICT. Again, there must be institutional bandwidth, because we all know the issue of internet penetration, which is a challenge. Since we are going online, because that is the new normal that we're talking about now, the issue of bandwidth is a very big challenge, which an institution that wants to run online must have a very strong bandwidth. And there are some other tools that such institutions should need to have. He has already mentioned the issue of computers, the up-to-date PC or equivalent device with moderate speed internet connection. The issue also has to do with the issue of the online learning tools, which institutions should have. There is this modular object-oriented dynamic learning environments, Moodle, which is a very powerful tool used by educators to provide custom learning environments for students and create lessons, manage courses, and interact with teachers and students. This is what we are using in our own institution presently. And during this COVID-19, we have no problem because our students have been receiving their lectures online using this module. And in the first place, the university, the students have been submitting their assignment right from the beginning, even before COVID-19, online. They have been submitting their assignment. So we had no problem with this issue of new normal. We have been working according to the new normal. But what we are saying is that the necessary online learning tools must be made available by the institution. Now, we also have to consider the issue of virtual classrooms. There are different types, like what we're using now, Zoom, and that is what the university has been using as well, our own university, National University of Nigeria. terms of facilitation. There are environments like video conferencing facilities, Google Classroom, Scratch coding application design for distance education for all class of learners, including kids, the use of Flipboard classrooms, and all other platforms like Schoology, and others that include Canvas and Coursera. All these things are these necessary tools that anyone that wants to go online must make sure that they have them. So that's to mean that about 60% of the budget should go for ICT infrastructure, because everything will be done online. And unless much is given to that aspect to achieve the desired goal, it's going to be very difficult without attaching too much budget to ICT. Now, the issue of examination and its integrity comes to fore when we talk about going online. We have tried it. When the last speaker was speaking from South Africa, UNISA, I felt as if it's like we collaborated together with them, because our students also, right now, they are writing exams. We started with our postgraduate students. They wrote their exams online on demand. Those who will be able to run the exams, those who have the equipment that is needed, the environment that is needed for the online examination, they wrote it. And even right now, the undergraduates have started their own. So these are the issues that the new normal has brought onto us. We're now the other issue that has to do with this infrastructure is what we call Edpuzzle, Edmodo, Socratic, Loom, and etc. GoToMeeting, Microsoft Meeting. These are several platforms that an institution that wants to go online that need to have, depending on the capacity of the art institution in terms of the student population. You choose the one that will be compatible to your own population. But as we said, the entire thing has to do with our bandwidth, because without internet, most of these things we do, we depend on the internet penetration that we have in Africa. So these are the few things that I want to add to what the last professor has said concerning infrastructure, because he has already spoken most of the things. So these are the things that I say I need to just give as a support to what he has said. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I think they were very clear about what needs to be done. And so we simply need to make sure that we take note of these issues, because they are very critical. Please allow me to call upon Ms. Nodumotlamin. I'm not sure if she's around, but she must be, because she has got a long experience in ICTs. She's the director of Communication and Knowledge Management, ICTs, at the Association of African Universities. I just wanted to share a bit of experience of what they've done for the continent and how they've managed, even at national level, if that could help, because we still need to come together and make sure we reduce the cost of these internet services. Ms. Nodumotlamini, please come in.
Okay, good afternoon, colleagues. Violet, please confirm that I'm audible.
You are audible.
Thank you so much for organizing this wonderful session, and thank you to the speakers that have spoken before. We apologize for the apparent Zoom hacking. We are using the Zoom platform for the first time, So I must say we are still learning. When we checked, we realized that annotation was enabled for participants. So maybe among us, there's someone who is really not meant to be in this meeting, and then they are playing around with that annotation to irritate us. So please, let's not lose hope. I think it's a learning point. Concerning my brief remarks, the most important thing that I think we need to remember is that even before COVID, our educational institutions, educational systems. Yes.
Okay, thank you. You can go on.
Okay, our educational systems were challenged even before COVID. So the things that we are talking about are really not new. The good thing that is coming out as a result of COVID is that we're being reminded to sort of review and improve the way that we do things. Concerning the ICT, okay. Concerning the ICT, okay, thank you. Thank you. Apparently my screen was not looking okay. Thank you, Dr. Makuku. Concerning the ICT, what we are seeing is that our universities have not been able to cope in terms of quickly implementing e-learning. This is because our universities had not yet institutionalized learning management systems. They had not really considered blended learning as an option. But now during COVID, we are seeing a lot of our institutions are struggling and trying to do training, trying to solve the infrastructure issue, trying to solve the access issue. And we also note that our universities don't even have good information about their students in terms of how they access the internet. So the biggest lesson is that universities must know their students. They must be, maybe as part of management information systems or students information systems, we must regularly capture some data which can help us serve our students better. As the association, we've really focused on looking at advocacy very strongly, talking to the African ministers of education, talking to governments, liaising with the African Union Commission, so that we address this issue holistically. Internet infrastructure is a huge issue. It's an issue that must be solved by governments. There must be investments. We must have last mile solutions at a national level that address the remotest villages. The most remote villages in our countries must be priority in terms of connectivity. For many years, the AAU has been supporting the establishment of national research and education networks through the platform of Vice Chancellors, Conference of Rectors, Vice Presidents, and Rectors of African universities. They saw this a long time ago in 2005. So through the National Research and Education Networks, we hoped that these would become the internet service providers of African educational institutions. But unfortunately, they are at different levels. in terms of maturity. So there are some that have done well, there are some that have not done well. The key message here is that if you belong to a university or educational institution, please find out what your national research and education network is, get involved, support them to be supported at a national level, because they are really trying to ensure we have the internet connectivity that we need to do what we are supposed to do. And then we are also learning as an association that we need to train a lot of people. We are still figuring out the model to use for training millions of people to be proficient in the use of these tools. So there are two models that we are currently trying out. One is the faculty modular training, which happens once a week, where we are teaching academics how to use simple tools, how to do things, how to quickly get back online, or how to get online if they were not. Then the other one we are doing, which is ending next week, is working with Moodle experts to support one university in Zimbabwe as a pilot. So we are training that university how to use Moodle, the Moodle learning management system, and we are making it very well organized so that they get some skills, because it's not easy to move from offline teaching to online teaching, especially when you also have never been an online student. And then lastly, we are also seeing that there's a need to share a lot as African universities. What we are seeing is everyone going it alone. Each university is on its own, trying to solve this huge problem. The collaborations are not really coming out. So we want to also appeal that we need to begin to work together at a national level. Before we start working together at a regional level, let's work together at a national level. Is there some capacity resident within our countries that we can leverage and address issues of capacity building, and also address issues of shared infrastructure, shared e-learning platforms? What can we really do together? Is there some content, a course, it may be in research methods, that has been well designed in one university, which can be shared as open educational resources for others to quickly adapt? So it's very important that we really look at this issue of sharing. In conclusion, if there are any ICT directors on this call, I think we also need to do our part to come out of our shells, because sometimes IT technical people can be a bit removed from the rest of the institution. So we need to really look at how do we help faculty to use technology effectively? How do we help students to learn better? What is the university trying to achieve through the use of ICT? So I think there's an opportunity for ICT directors to play their role in really supporting universities to integrate technology. Dr. Makuku, let me stop there. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nodumotla. Truly speaking, ladies and gentlemen, you would allow me to say you will also agree with me that these three people, they really know their area very, very well. And I think this is some of the knowledge and information that we really need to push on. Remember earlier I said cooperation and collaboration is what we want. And everybody is showing that. Without that, there's one thing which I normally like in Ms. Nodumo's presentations. Research done indicated that if, for example, in a country, a university was running its own internet services account, and then at national level, they come together to use one account, there is a reduction of cost by between 70 to 80%. Can you imagine? Let's think about it. In the interest of time, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to call upon Professor Clement Judonu. Professor Judonu is he owns a university which is ICT based, and it's called Accra Institute of Technology. For more than 10 years, he has been on it, and a senior research fellow of the International Institute of Information Technology. Prof. Judonu, from 1984, taught and conducted research at a number of universities, including Trinity College, University of Dublin, National University of Ireland, Makerere in Uganda. Anybody from Uganda, you can hear that he has been to your place there. He obtained his PhD in computer science in 1988. I can't remember what I was doing there. Professor Judonu has published a number of computer textbooks and over 100 scientific papers and reports. Ladies and gentlemen, I can go on and on, but in the interest of time and why we are here, allow me to bring on board Prof. Clement Judonu. Prof, you are most welcome. Address the participants.
Thank you very much, Dr. Makuku. Can you hear me well?
Yes, please.
Very good. Thank you very much for the introduction. Just one small correction. I don't own a university. I'm the president of the university. If I own a university, I might be a very, very rich man.
Thank you for the
Accra Institute of Technology, I am the president, not the owner. Thank you. I listened to the previous presentations, and my presentation is on the issue of standards and guidelines. Let me give you an analogy. We are looking at a vehicle, a car, moving on the road. Before COVID, before the new normal, this car, let's call it a Peugeot 404, an old car, which is moving on a road which is full of potholes. The car moves all right. There's a driver, there's a passenger, there are passengers. It's okay. We don't need to move very far because we are doing campus-based, so there's no need to move. That's physical. But now with COVID, we want to move online. So we need to do something about the potholes, which is the infrastructure, which our colleagues have just spoke about. We need to do something about the car. The car must move at a higher speed. It must be a car which can survive the journey. We need to do something about the car too. Probably instead of Peugeot 404, we go for a Cadillac or a better car. The people in the car itself, some guidelines and protocols must be given to them about the new normal. So for me, the infrastructure, which my colleagues spoke about, cover the issue of access and connectivity, internet connectivity. So if we used to have a pothole road, we need an asphalt road in order to implement learning in a new normal. So the potholes road must be asphalt. Then we also talk about, as part of the same infrastructure, we talk about the university computer systems and resources. It's extremely important. You can have the best internet connectivity, but if the university's own computer system, campus system, is not all right, there's no way you can connect to that road. It's like having a good asphalt road without a good car to run on it. So that is the infrastructure part.
The next thing for me is the systems which will run on that infrastructure. One key point in the new normal is a new, what they call the learning management system. You must have a learning management system before you can write in this new normal. Now, for AIT is 10 years old. For 10 years, we have been running two systems. We have been running the regular campus-based system for the undergraduate program, and we also been running the Open University, which we do for the postgraduate program, master's and PhD. Now, so for 10 years, we have experience in delivering online education at the same time doing the campus-based education. So when COVID came, we thought we are ready to go. We have some shocks. I'll explain that in a minute. That the new normal requires that even universities who have already been online, partially or fully, need to do some more things before they can survive in the new normal. I'll give you the AIT experience now. That's the systems. The systems, apart from the learning management system, you also need some learning support systems, software. We had some in the past, but we found out that the new normal we need to procure more before we can survive. Apart from that, the next thing for me is resources. You cannot run university in the new normal without the learning resources. You may have the infrastructure, you may have the computer system, you may have the software, but what content are you going to deliver? You can have a learning management system which has a front end, but not have any resources behind it. So we're talking about e-library system. I'm talking about multimedia e-library system. I'm not just talking about textbooks and PDFs. I'm talking about videos, audios. Those are the things you need before you can run. And of course, as I said, the new normal requires that we need to put in place new guidelines and protocols. This one thing that we have realized after 10 years running a partially online program, we found out that that will not take us there. In other words, what brought us here will not take us there. So we found out that guidelines and protocols, new guidelines and protocols were necessary before we can actually survive. I will talk about that. Is the main focus of my talk. Then the next thing is the people and the stakeholders. Here we have university administration, the must operate in the new normal. Some work had to be done there. We are talking about technical staff. The technical staff which used to run our system when we don't have the COVID, although they were quite competent, we found out that when we have the COVID period, we have to go fully online. We have to revamp that thing and put more into it. And of course, the faculty. The faculty is key. The faculty which delivers your campus-based program cannot deliver your online program. That much I can assure you. A study done in the US among a lot of faculty shows that close to 40 to 50% who have even done online before say they have to learn new skills. So it means that the faculty need to be retrained, guidelines need to be put in place, protocols need to be put in place, this thing. And of course, the students also need to go through another process before they can be able to survive in the new online. Another stakeholder is the parents. Now that the students are at home, they are involved in their learning. They are also another stakeholder, and of course, alumni. So it's quite clear that the COVID pandemic has led a number of universities globally to make some drastic changes to their operations and also the delivery of teaching and learning and engagement, all driven by technology. As I said, it is infrastructure and the systems. These new changes involve navigating several uncharted territories of approaches, teaching and learning, hence the new experience. I made a point already that although we have been doing this thing for 10 years, we found out that when we enter the COVID, the students are not on campus anymore. Even those who used to be online, we found out that we enter into new territory altogether. We have to do things. So campus-based teaching and learning, which have now moved to online delivery, which is being supported by other student services. That's another area that we need to look at. Now, the prediction is that a number of universities, including ours, even after the COVID, are going to maintain some of the things that we have done during the new normal. Some people estimate that about 70% of the teaching and learning approaches that have been adopted during the term of the crisis is likely to be maintained by some number of universities. It is anticipated that at least several of these universities may adopt at least blended mode of learning. In other words, they may not go back to the complete physical face-to-face learning again. They will combine it with some online learning, given that we have not developed the technology in order to do that. That to me is a new normal. What is a new normal? Let me add to what Dr. Makuku said. For us, the new normal, which has a number of quality assurance implications, emphasis. We also discovered that the quality assurance protocols, guidelines that we had before COVID, both for the online and the physical face-to-face, need to be revamped. So they must be new, they must be revamped, and they must be enhanced in order to support the platforms, the systems, the procedures, the guidelines, the protocols, and the standards that will be driven by the technology. I think that African universities in the new normal will need to address a number of quality assurance issues related to the following. One, the educational program development, deployment, and delivery. Some universities will need to completely develop their programs to suit the new normal, and this has quality assurance implications. Two, learning facilitation, both the administration of the learning process and the of the learning process. To have only 3 people who used to man our quality assurance and monitoring system, but when we went the COVID experience, we increased that to 12 people. So which shows that monitoring and administering learning facilitation online requires a bigger team, and that have a lot of quality assurance implications. 3, assessment. My colleague from UNISA made a point. The development, the delivering, administering, and monitoring of assessment is something which is now a big deal in the new environment. Well, we all be giving face-to-face campus exams. In the online, we found out that we have to redesign our whole what they call exam paper. I recall the day that we had a shutdown in Ghana, that was the day we were supposed to do our mid-semester exam in our campus-based university. We have all our mid-semester papers ready to do exam for 2 weeks, and then we shut down. What did we do? We went back to the faculty, give them a protocol, guidelines about how to write open book exams for the first time. Again, that is an example of new guidelines that you need. Number 4, engagement and interaction. This is big time. This is faculty to learner interaction, academic administration to learner interaction, academic administration to faculty interaction, learner to learner interaction, and of course, faculty to faculty interaction. All these have quality assurance implications, which we don't used to have before the COVID period. So the new normal actually bring it to fore that even engagement and interaction do have quality assurance implications. The next thing, the student life cycle facilitation and support. Now, we're all preparing for the new semester. There are a lot of student life cycle issues, recruitment of students, enrollment of students, interacting with them. In the new COVID period, the whole formula have changed. So supporting the entire student life activities is also something we need to look at in the new normal. And of course, engagement with parents and alumni. So for us, to address and support all these cross-cutting quality assurance issues that encompass all aspects of the new normal delivering of programs, we think African universities, like those in other parts of the world, would need to put in place and implement new, revamped, and enhanced quality assurance management systems, quality assurance procedures, quality assurance guidelines, quality assurance protocols, and of course, quality assurance standards. In order to facilitate their educational program delivery, development, and deployment, their facilitation, assessment, engagement, interaction, student life cycle, and so forth. All those things are quite crucial in the new normal. So certainly, we think that we at AIT, we have gone through the cycle. For us, it's still in progress. We are seriously thinking that even when we come back, we hope when we come back in September, we are still going to adopt a number of these protocols that we have developed. Let me just go to some of them. To support teaching and learning, we develop procedures, guidelines for how to teach online courses in the new normal. We used to teach online courses before, but we need new guidelines about how to do it, the whole protocol about how to do it. We also have what we call the AIT protocol on the delivery of online teaching and learning programs, which is different from what we used to use. And of course, we have a whole protocol on AIT online learning and monitoring, which we develop for our team. On assessment, we have a clear guidelines about how to set open exam books and questions, and how to even administer the exam and make sure that plagiarism and copying and cheating is a whole document we wrote, and we will also make it available to the students. How they should take the exam, how they submit their plagiarism report, how we monitor it, how we check copying, and so forth and so forth. Guidelines, all those things, we are ready to support that. Engagement and interaction. We have a whole procedures, guidelines, and protocol about how engagement must happen among all the stakeholders in the university. And of course, we have a number of our protocols. So the short version of my presentation is that we are entering into a new normal. A new normal which states that what brought us here will not be there. A lot of things must be done. Even universities who have been teaching online will need to revamp things. Even faculty who have been teaching online need to learn new skills. I'm sure my colleague who is going to talk about the skills will actually touch on that. We have to do a whole lot of retraining of our faculty in order to deliver online. So the long and short is that infrastructure, systems, resources, guidelines, people, and all those things are quality assurance implications, and we need to look at it if we are going to survive in the new normal. Thank you.
Welcome to AAU TV, the voice of higher education in Africa. Today we bring you exclusive highlights of sport and interviews at the 26th Ghana University Sport Association GOSA Games 2020 at the University of Ghana, Legon. This year's GOSA Games features 11 universities, which includes the host university, the University of Ghana, the defending champions University of Cape Coast, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, University of Education Winneba, University of Professional Studies Accra, University for Developmental Studies, University of Energy and Natural Resources, the University of Health and Allied Sciences, the University of Mines and Technology, as well as this year's new entrants, the Ghana Institute of Journalism and the Ghana Institute of Management and Public Administration in this year's GOSA Games 2020. Over 2,000 athletes from all the 11 universities competed in sports disciplines such as athletics, badminton, basketball, beach volleyball, football, goalball, hockey, handball, netball, table tennis, tennis, and volleyball. AAU TV promises to bring you all the tidbits, the joy, the clamoring, the disappointment, the tears, and the victories in this year's GOSA Games 2020. Please stay tuned for more of the GOSA Games 2020 only on AAU TV. We will be right back.
This is Etu Moses Emmanuel from Gilpa, repping life at the GOSA Games. Keep watching AAU TV, the voice of higher education in Africa. Boom!
AAU TV, and we are here at the Gusa Games 2020, and I have here with me Gustav from KNUS, who is the captain for the basketball team. Hello Gustav, how are you doing?
I'm good, how are you doing?
I'm fine. How did the game go?
It went well. I mean, altogether, I think our team played well. Even though we took the loss, but I think our team played well. We were relentless. I mean, at the end of the game, UW was the better side, so props to them.
So I believe you are going to have another match with other team, right?
Yeah, it's a long tournament. We have about 7 more games to play, so we're just going to keep our head up. I'm just going to motivate my players to keep our head up. We are playing UCC on Saturday. We are resting tomorrow, so we're going to go back to the drawing board, make all the corrections, and go and play UCC on Saturday, and make sure we win.
I have here with me Benjamin, who is from the winning team at University of Education. Hello Benjamin, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Okay, so how did the game go?
It was quite tough. They were a better side, but then we showed them what we got, and then hard work pays. So basketball is all about 90% mindset, and we had to put it in, and then we just had to win.
You being from the winning team, I believe you reached your expectations, right?
Yeah, most def.
What should your fan expect from you from the next match?
They should expect good basketball, and basketball made in Winneba, and not basketball made in Tech.
Africa. Welcome to another edition of Ladies Digest on AAU TV. And I'm filling in for your regular host, John, who is celebrating International Women's Day in Kenya. Today, we are discussing the topic endometriosis, and we'll be back shortly after the break. Stay tuned. With me in the studio is our regular guest. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for joining us to discuss this interesting topic, endometriosis.
Yes.
But before we go, we don't want to rush into endometriosis since there are complex situations that comes about it. And so we will start with the woman's menstrual cycle. What is the menstrual cycle?
So the menstrual cycle is a process that occurs every month for women past the age of puberty that allows reproduction to take place. And so the process is regulated by
the female hormones, estrogen and progesterone. And throughout the month, these hormones increase and decrease in such a way as to prepare the lining of the uterus, called the endometrium, for pregnancy. At a certain point during the month, as the hormones increase, they trigger ovulation, which is the release of an egg from the ovary every month. And then if pregnancy does not occur, both of the hormones start to decrease. Then at the end, or the beginning, I should say, of the menstrual cycle is when the menses occurs. And so the menstrual cycle on average can last from 21 to 35 days. But for most women, it's around 28 days.
That is the regular cycle.
That's the regular. Some women will have 25 days, some women will have 30 days. But on average, women are most familiar with the 28-day cycle.
Okay, so talking about the menstrual cycle, what are some of the common symptoms of the normal menstrual cycle? Yeah, because we see a lot of them, we hear about a lot of them. So what are the symptoms of the normal menstrual cycle?
There are many different things that can occur that signals a woman that the menses is about to occur. So again, the cycle is what occurs throughout the month. So during the month before the menses actually occurs, you may notice some differences in the vaginal discharge. We talked about vaginal discharge quite a bit in the last episode. So typically the vaginal discharge may vary in color and quantity, and also in consistency. And it's because of the cycling of the hormones, like I mentioned. There also can be some changes that occur around ovulation time. So some women may feel ovulation, either on the right or the left side. It varies from month to month, the side that the egg comes from.
Very true. I relate to that.
So sometimes you may notice a little slight cramping or discomfort on one side or the other, or in the pelvis. It usually doesn't last long, and it's not severe that requires any medication. Usually a day or two, you might notice a fullness or heaviness in the pelvis, and then it goes away. As the menses is about to occur, you may notice a change in your vaginal discharge again. But more commonly, you will notice your premenstrual symptoms, or PMS, premenstrual syndrome.
I really wanted you to go there because some say it's a myth.
It's very real. Many women experience premenstrual syndrome, or PMS, I'm going to call it. Some women don't have it at all. They are the lucky ones, I guess we can call them. But you may notice skin changes, acne, which will increase right before the menses occurs. You might notice fatigue. You might notice breast tenderness or even breast swelling. All of these are hormonal responses, and they can be normal. You might notice even some mild cramping in your pelvis before the menses is going to occur. You might notice some mood changes. I think that's what's most associated.
The major one.
That's what's most associated with premenstrual syndrome. And it can be feeling very tearful or down, or you can maybe one moment you're okay, and then you get angry the next few minutes. So these are all things that can occur right before the menses occurs, and they can all be normal as long as they are not interfering with your daily functioning,
daily activities.
As long as you're still able to go about your normal business and interact with people in a way that you feel is productive and normal, then it's not anything to be worried about. During the menses, obviously, the symptoms tend to be cramping. Sometimes mild, sometimes it can be severe. But if it's severe, it tends to be manageable with pain medication. So acetaminophen or paracetamol, or any of the NSAIDs like ibuprofen or diclofenac or Diclo, I hear people calling it. Those things should be enough to control the cramping associated with a normal menses if it's on the more severe side. Sometimes also you might notice that your bowel habits will change, meaning your bowel movement. So many women will report either diarrhea or constipation right before the menses. And that tends to be because the substances that are produced in the uterus and the uterine lining when your menses occurs also can affect your intestines because the bowel sits right behind
Close
the uterus.
to it,
So it's very common that women will experience something like that when their menses is about to occur. So all of those things can fall within the range of normal.
The normal symptoms.
Exactly.
Okay. So how do you differentiate? Because our topic is endometriosis.
Yes.
So first of all, before we even go to the symptoms, what is endometriosis?
Endometriosis is the growth of endometrial tissue. Like I mentioned, the endometrium or the endometrial tissue is the lining of the uterus that produces the menses. So when you have that endometrial tissue growing outside of the uterus, that condition is called endometriosis.
Oh, outside the uterus.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so it can affect the tubes, your fallopian tubes, your pelvis, and then all of that.
Yes. So when every woman has the menses, there's an exit through the cervix and out of the vagina. That's what we actually see. But the fallopian tubes also serve as an exit for the menstrual blood flow.
Oh.
It happens pretty much in all women. It's a normal process.
Okay.
In most women, your body, your immune system will send cells to collect up that blood and tissue that has gone into the pelvis and get rid of it. Every month that process occurs.
That's nice.
But in some women, that process is incomplete. So it's in those cases where there's blood and endometrial tissue remaining in the pelvis that can actually attach to the lining of the pelvis as well as the pelvic organs. Like you started to mention, the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, the outside of the uterus, the bladder, and the intestines, which also are near the uterus. And so when the endometrial tissue is growing in the pelvis and on those organs outside of the uterus, that condition is called endometriosis.
Yes. Okay. Are there some specific causes? What causes this problem? What causes endometriosis in women?
There are many theories as to, there are three in particular that have been discussed as potential causes for endometriosis to occur. That whole discussion is very complex and it's mostly in the realm of academics and us physicians to debate, what the main cause is. However, like I mentioned, the blood and the endometrial tissue does come out of the fallopian tube, so at least we know that does play a role in that the blood and tissue is not completely absorbed or removed from the pelvis month to month, and so it starts to grow and implant there. The other theories try to explain when endometriosis is found in other parts of the body. Endometriosis has been found in the lungs. It also has been found in the brain. Those are very rare cases, but they have been found in those locations. And if you can imagine, the blood coming out of the fallopian tube month to month doesn't really explain how endometriosis can be found in the lungs or the brains. But there are many theories as to what causes it. I won't go into detail into those. It'll just confuse, a lot of people, and it's beyond the scope of our purpose for talking about this. But we do know that there are risk factors for endometriosis, meaning things that can make it more likely to find endometriosis in a woman. So one of the main risk factors is if you have a first-degree relative, meaning your mom, your sister, who has endometriosis. There is a genetic component that we've realized that can increase a woman's risk of having endometriosis. Additionally, if a woman has started the menses early in life, before age 11, that can also be a risk factor. If the menstrual cycles are very short, so like I mentioned in the beginning, menstrual cycles on average are 28 days. Sometimes a little shorter, sometimes a little longer. But if they're very short, so if your cycles occur every 21 days or 23 days, then that means that you're having your menses more than once a month. And that's all the more times where the blood is going into the pelvis and having the opportunity to implant there. And then finally, if you've never had a child, that has been found to be a risk factor for endometriosis as well.
Oh, okay. So does it mean, you just said the last sentence was that if you've not had a child, but can endometriosis be found in women who have children?
Yes, it can. And that's a very good question, actually, because it will lead into further discussion that we will have today about the varying manifestations of endometriosis. It's a very interesting and diverse type of condition in the sense that not all women will manifest the same symptoms and problems associated with endometriosis. So there are some women who have endometriosis who have children, who have no pain associated with it, who really have not had an issue, but maybe for some other reason, let's say they're having surgery for a different reason, and we look in, we see that there's endometriosis there. So it's not to say that, you know, if you haven't had children, then you definitely will have endometriosis. It's just that studies have shown that women who have not had children, they have a higher incidence, you know, of having endometriosis. And if you can imagine, when you're pregnant, you're not having your menses, and so you're not having that spill of blood and tissue into your pelvis.
For the immune system to work on that.
Exactly. So you have a break from that whole menstrual cycle with each pregnancy. So you have a good 9 to 10 month break. And if you breastfeed, usually your menstrual cycle can be oppressed as well, or
for
suppressed.
a long time.
Not oppressed, but suppressed. And so depending on how long you breastfeed, if you're doing it on a consistent basis, sometimes your menstrual cycle can be suppressed for a year or more.
Or two,
Exactly. And so when you don't have that constant spill of the blood and endometrial tissue into the pelvis, then there's less chance for endometriosis to occur.
Okay, so normally when we have menses, we know we have normal pains and all of that. So how would you know this is endometriosis? What are the symptoms of endometriosis? Because normally women go through, having normal, I have pains during my menses, which we think is normal. So what are some of the symptoms that when I look at this, I know this is just beyond normal and I need a checkup for that?
With endometriosis, like I mentioned, it can be difficult for some women to tell, is this something that I could have or not? Again, because it's a very varied condition in terms of how it manifests. But some things that can clue you in are if you have pain to the point where you're taking pain medications, you're doing all the normal things that you think should help with the pain. So maybe you're using heat, like a hot water bottle. You're using your pain medication. Even if it requires you to go to your doctor and get a prescription, a stronger pain medication, and it's still not helping with the pain, that's not normal. I have some women who have come to me telling me that they've missed days from work, days from school. They're on the floor curled up, crying, screaming because they're in so much pain. That is not normal. I always like to say that your menses should not interfere with your normal daily functioning.
So there comes our society. We are not even a society where we can come out of our shelves to talk about these. You can even talk to your mother because maybe your mother wants you to do something. You tell her that's what's happening. You said, you are lazy. You don't want to do it just because of this. We've gone through that, and everybody can work through that.
That is a very, very important point because I think that happens a lot in various places, not just here. And it's important if you are noticing that this is happening and you aren't able to discuss it either with family members or friends, you have to seek care. You have to go and seek out a doctor who's going to be willing to listen to you and look further into, what is the nature of the pain? What have you been utilizing to help? Do some evaluation, some tests, whether it be blood tests, imaging tests, scans, etc., to look and see, could endometriosis be a possibility? It's also good that we're even having this discussion. I mean, what we're doing is raising awareness
on that.
For women to know that yes, in general, most women can work through a lot. We're strong. There's a lot we have to deal with, Even sometimes with pain, we have to deal with it and do what we have to do. But sometimes it's not just an excuse for the woman being dramatic or trying to get out of doing some kind of work.
They don't understand why you have mood swings. They don't know anything about it.
Yes, having this discussion and raising the awareness for people to know, yes, there are certain conditions that can make the menstrual cycle or the menses debilitating to the point where you can't function. And so the more we raise awareness and, you go tell a friend or you go tell a family member and say, I heard about this, endometriosis, could this be what's going on with so and so?
Exactly.
That also can help open up the discussion more or make women feel more comfortable to say, you know, I think there's something really wrong here.
Yeah.
The other things in terms of symptoms that could clue you in would be if you are having pain at other times outside of the menses.
Okay.
We know about cramping during the menses, but if you have pain throughout the entire month, that is a problem. If a woman is sexually active and they're having pain during intercourse, especially if it feels like it's a deep internal pain, which sometimes will even stop her from continuing, that also is not normal. Like I mentioned earlier, endometriosis can be present on the bladder and also on the intestines. So if a woman notices that she's having pain during urination, most women know about urinary tract infection, UTIs.
Yeah.
Usually that's a burning pain. You're urinating more than normal. The urine might have a certain odor to it. But in this case, there's no urinary tract infection there. There's no infection. But it's more of like a cramping, maybe sharp pain, maybe similar to the pain that a woman may get during the menses if they have endometriosis every time they go to urinate. Or maybe they feel the strong urge and not much urine comes out. Similarly with the bowel movement, sometimes when they go to pass the stool, they'll get a really sharp, severe pain.
Okay.
If they notice blood or in the stool or blood in the urine, sometimes that can also be an issue because endometriosis is a condition where if it attaches to the bladder, if it attaches to the intestines, it can start to grow to the inside of the intestine or the bladder and start to produce blood every time. In some cases, a woman may only see the blood when they're having the menses. Even if they don't have the pain, they're having their menses come out through the vaginal opening, but they also see the blood coming out from the anal opening. That also is not normal. So all of these things might clue a woman in that, okay, there's something else going on beyond just normal menstrual pain, or we call it dysmenorrhea is the medical term. And infertility is also a symptom. So that's one thing that's important to note.
We're getting there.
Yes, we are getting to that point. Because again, endometriosis may not have any of the symptoms I just mentioned, including the pain. But the woman may be infertile, trying to conceive and not getting pregnant. Endometriosis can be a reason for that.
Okay, so endometriosis, we can categorically say that it causes infertility among women.
It can cause infertility. So remember I said earlier, some people have it but still conceive. But endometriosis is a cause for infertility, among others.
Okay, so talking about this, you already talked about the scan. What other diagnostic measures can we take to show that this person has endometriosis? How can we diagnose endometriosis in a woman?
The first and most important one is the medical history. So when you see your physician, if there is a suspicion of that, or even just, let's say you go for your routine checkup, generally we will ask certain questions if there are problems with the menstrual cycle, and we will try to elicit any of the symptoms that I just mentioned. Pain during the menses, how bad is it? Do you have to miss days from work? Do you have pain from intercourse, etc., etc.? The next would be the actual family history. So trying to see, do women in your family have menstrual problems? What is the nature of those problems? Then we move on to the physical examination. With the examination, we do an abdominal exam, so we feel if there's pain in any areas when we press. The pelvic examination, which I had talked about the well woman visit and the gynecologic pelvic exam before. In doing the pelvic examination, we do a bimanual exam. So that's where we put 1 or 2 fingers into the vagina and then also use the opposite hand to press on the actual pelvic organs and the pelvic lining itself. Depending on the extent of endometriosis, if it's very mild, I may not feel anything at all, because like I said, the endometriosis can be very varied. Sometimes it's just too superficial and I won't feel anything. If it's deep endometriosis, and I'll get into these terms a little bit later, superficial and deep, if it's deep endometriosis, it usually has started to cause scarring. Endometriosis causes inflammation because the blood and tissue that's in the pelvis is not supposed to be there. And so your body reacts to inflammation by trying to contain it or wall it off. And it does that in the pelvis by causing scar tissue. With endometriosis, if it's very severe, the scar tissue can develop so much that it becomes like a very hard, dense nodule.
Because when you have a scar, it turns hard on your skin. So that's exactly what happens.
That's what can happen internally. So when I do the pelvic examination, I might actually feel those hard nodules when I feel the back part of the pelvis. if the endometriosis has caused a cyst on the ovary, a cyst is a fluid-filled sac.
Okay.
Endometriosis cyst is called endometrioma, or chocolate cyst. It's easy to say chocolate cyst. We call it a chocolate cyst because the endometrial tissue, once it forms into a cyst on your ovary, it gets old and turns dark brown. So usually when we're doing surgery and we break it open, it comes out like chocolate, like chocolate mousse.
Okay.
So if there is a cyst or enlargement of the ovary as a result of an endometrioma, I might feel that enlargement when I do the exam. So then that would then prompt me to do some imaging studies. So pelvic sonogram, sometimes MRI, in some cases CAT scan, depending on what I'm looking for, or CT scan.
Okay.
And in those cases, it may identify some lesions in the pelvis that would clue me in that maybe there's an endometriosis lesion present. I will say though that with the imaging, the sonogram, the CT scan, MRI, it may be normal. That doesn't rule out a diagnosis of endometriosis. It just means that the endometriosis is not forming either a cyst or it hasn't caused a dense, nodule of scar tissue that can actually be seen on the scan.
This is very true because I think I have a relative who was going to the hospital to check these issues. She had gone through all the scans, she had gone through all the MRIs, but they couldn't find what was wrong with her. It was very difficult. So aside those scans, how can you also get to diagnose endometriosis if all these are not possible on this, have not been found on the scans?
Right.
Yeah.
So the main thing in that type of instance that I would rely on is the woman's history. If everything, all the information I've obtained from the woman is making me lean towards endometriosis, I can make the diagnosis based on that. And so then the woman and I, we have a further discussion about what she feels comfortable with, because the only definitive way to rule in endometriosis is with surgery, where I actually look inside the pelvis and see that the endometriosis lesion is present. You also can biopsy or take a little piece of that tissue and send it to the lab, and if they see endometrial tissue in that specimen that I took out, then endometriosis is confirmed. So that is the definitive way to diagnose endometriosis. But you don't always have to have surgery to diagnose it.
Because if you are supposed to have surgery to even be diagnosed of it, that means it's a tedious process.
It's a very involved thing. Surgery is never to be taken lightly. And so not all women need to have surgery to diagnose this. If everything in the history is pointing me in that direction, I would say you most likely have endometriosis. Here's what we can do to, number one, manage the problem, and number two, see if this is indeed the likely diagnosis outside of having surgery. The other option is to go ahead and have surgery. A diagnostic laparoscopy, and I'll talk about laparoscopy a bit in a bit more detail. Laparoscopy is a way to look inside the abdomen and pelvis with small cuts on the abdomen using special instruments that fit through those small cuts.
It's still surgery.
It's still surgery, but instead of having a big open incision on the belly like a cesarean section cut, you have very small cuts ranging from 5 millimeters to 1 centimeter.
Oh, that is
so they're very small. And they usually have either 3 or 4 on the belly. They can be strategically placed so you don't see them that much. And it allows surgeons to go in, look, see if endometriosis is there, do biopsies in mild cases where there's not a lot of scarring and such. Or even if there is a lot of scarring or many endometriosis lesions or even a chocolate cyst present, they can all be removed and managed just with those small cuts with laparoscopic surgery. And so if a woman wants to go that route, maybe they don't want to take the medications that are used to manage endometriosis, or they just want to know 100% for sure, then that is also an option. If you do a diagnostic laparoscopy and you do some small biopsies, usually that procedure takes about an hour. It's not very involved. And with laparoscopy, one of the good things about it is that you can go home the very same day. You don't have to stay in the hospital for a long period of time. So yes, it is still a surgery, with its inherent risks present, but it is one that generally
is effective.
It's effective.
Yeah.
You get a definite diagnosis, and you know, if you have a surgeon who's skilled in doing it, then it can be very easy to set up and, you know, recover from.
No, that's good. When you were talking about it, there is something that I observed. What I observed is that the same symptoms is also present in other female reproductive health.
Yes.
And so we can't sit at the back of our houses and make our own diagnosis.
Exactly.
Or go to WebMD, which I am often
We're all guilty of it.
Yeah, guilty of it. Trying to find my symptoms, put in my
yes.
symptoms, and then finding it. Since it's a very tedious procedure, then endometriosis means we need to be in the hospital regularly for a checkup.
You should check up routinely with your physician, you know, even if you don't have any symptoms of anything, like I mentioned with women who have endometriosis, but